again, everybody. Welcome to the Backbone Podcast, where common sense still makes sense in a world that is sick and only getting sicker. And today I normally don't do shows on Sundays. That's the day of rest for me. Today I did take the kids out to the Niner Giant game. It was kind of a long ride out there, but it's not a lot. It's not often the 49ers come into town. And they won. They manhandled the Giants. It was a good game. I mean, CMC is just, he's a maniac. The guy is just incredible. Incredible how he can play. And the 49ers won 34-24. Weather after this. But I also wanted to get on the podcast today because I do this selfishly as therapy for myself. I love doing this podcast. It doesn't matter if it ever gets big, if it never gets big, I don't care. I just love doing it. And I do it almost every day. I think about doing it every day. And I wanted to share how I got to this moment in my life. A year ago at this time, I was lost. I was lost in the wilderness of temptation, and I failed all the Stoic readings that I had done. All the times I've looked for my inner strength and prayed and did all this shit. I shouldn't say that shit. Well, all these things to make myself better. I have one grave weakness, and that weakness is what most people have, or most guys have, and that would be women. But the caveat to that is that I tend to, and I'm not bragging here, I tend to date married women, which is immoral and it's wrong. And I'm paying for it every day. And I pray to God that he forgives me. And I don't blame him if he doesn't. I probably won't be going to heaven because of this. And that's fine. I'm a big boy and I've come to that rationale. But a year ago at this time, I was seeing a woman who, she was a Wiccan. She was a fucking witch. And she was everything that I kind of found sexy about her. She wasn't overly attractive. She had a pretty face, beautiful hair, beautiful, nice boobs, all that. But she wasn't the woman that I would tell you guys to go for. She had a very damaged history. Her biological father left her. He's an alcoholic. He was never in the picture. Her mother married an abusive man who abused her, not sexually or anything, but like mentally, and yelled at her and did all that shit. She ended up getting impregnated by this apex loser. I mean, just a fucking when you put loser in the dictionary, his picture will come up. Guy was just an all-time douchebag. And she married him, and she only married him to get out of the house. She was married to this guy for 17 years. And then she meets me, and I'm totally different from what she's used to. And we hooked up. And it was just a May-December thing. Around December 1st, actually around November 29th, around Thanksgiving time, I had gotten very sick. I didn't feel very well, and I don't get sick. We went to a party on December 7th, and I was running fevers of like 102, 103 every day. I wasn't eating. I didn't have any fluids in me. I was dehydrated. And not at the party, but in the hotel room where we were staying at, I blacked out. I passed out. Make a long story short, a couple of weeks later, now this girl, when she saw that, she definitely lost respect for me. It was a moment of weakness on my part that she just couldn't handle, which is funny coming from somebody that like her. But anyway, more importantly, a couple of weeks later, I go because I'm still working. I'm still going to the gym. I'm still doing my regular routine. the school nurse comes by my classroom and says, I have to check you out. I says, why? She goes, because your skin is gray. You're ill. You shouldn't be here. And she takes my blood pressure. She takes my temperature. My temperature was like 104. I was burning up, but I didn't notice it. So they send me to the hospital, and the doctor is very concerned. They put me on IVs. They take blood. They take urine. They take skin stuff, like they go under my fingernails. They're checking my ears. They're checking my eyes. They're checking everything. And I thought for a while that I had a sinus infection because I was always sniffing, coughing, coughing, coughing. The doctor calls me up the next week and says, I need you to come back in. And well, he tells me to take my temperature every day to monitor my temperature. My temperature never went below 101. I think the lowest I was at, like, it was 101, 102. This is about a week or two before Christmas now. He comes in, I go into the doctor, I tell him I'm taking my temperature in the morning, afternoon, and night, right before I go to bed. And he says, this is very concerning. He says, I want to eliminate all possibilities because my blood work, he didn't like my urine test. I had to take more blood. I had to get more blood, more urine. And he said, we have to we have to check all possibilities, and we have to come to terms with the worst possibility. And like a dumbbell, I was like, what could be the worst possibility? And he said, the possibility of you having cancer. Now that's a kick in the balls, especially around Christmas time. Right? My birthday is right after Christmas, 2 weeks after. Now, of course, I don't say anything to anybody. I'm certainly not going to tell this bitch this because, she couldn't handle me passing out because I was dehydrated and exhausted. How is she going to handle this? I didn't tell my children this. I didn't tell anybody this. Matter of fact, whoever watches this fucking podcast, you're like the first ones to know. Nobody at my job, no, or nothing. And I remember having to take an MRI the week before Christmas. And because of the holidays, who's going on vacation, who won't be here, who won't be there, I had to take an X-ray the next week. And I didn't know what was going on until after the New Year's. And my mind was all over the place. And I still had fevers. I asked the doctor, I said, how come I'm able to drive and go to work and go to the gym and go out? And he goes, because your mind is in a state of delirium. Your mind is tricking you into believing that you're not sick when you really are, that's an incredible power that the mind has. A week before my birthday, I found out, thank God, that I did not have cancer, but that I did have a serious kidney infection that was affecting the rest of my organs. My other organs were working overtime to keep my kidney working. So I had to go on medication to fight the kidney infection, and I had to go on medication to help me with my other organs that were, out of whack. And that took about a month. And at that point in time, I realized that no one's going to be there for you. There was nobody there to save me. There was nobody there to help me. I did this all on my own. I dealt with it on my own. I worried on my own. And I didn't share it with anybody. Where am I going with this? Well, I got closer to God after this. I went back to the Stoics after this February point. And I said, I'm going to do the things that I've always wanted to do because your life is fleeting. This was a warning shot. This was a warning shot. This weakness of pussy just was almost killed me. I was wasting my time over some woman who didn't give two shits about me. and who, frankly, I didn't give two shits either. I mean, it was hump fun, you know? But I knew I had to get serious about things that I wanted to do. And I always wanted to do a podcast. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to do one. I don't care who watches. I don't care if anybody watches. It's therapeutic for me. And it is. I had to get this out today. I can tell you that I failed the Stoics because of a weak moment of my life. But I did not dwell on that weak moment. I changed. God made me change. He let me know it. I tell you that that night when I passed out, when I blacked out, God was giving me, I was getting inklings in October, November about not being with this woman. Because once a buddy of mine is a $400 an hour psychiatrist in New York, and he's known me for 30 years. And he's told me, he tells me straight. And he's told me that I'm a narcissistic thrill seeker. You know, the temptation, stealing another man's woman is a thrill for me. Listen, I grew up in a neighborhood where a certain secret organization dwells. I learned how to drive in a stolen car. I hung out with guys that were not law-abiding citizens, and it was powerful. I never waited online at a club. I never waited for a table. If I needed tickets to somewhere, I got them, and a lot of times I didn't have to pay. I hooked up with a lot of women who had boyfriends, who had fiancés, who were married because of who I was hanging out with. Because women don't care about money. Women don't care about anything other than one thing: power. Power is the aphrodisiac. And I'm not saying I was a powerful person. I was just hanging out with powerful people, at least powerful people in that world. Now, where am I going with this? It's always the temptation that is your downfall. It's the short-term pleasures that took away my inner strength. And because I was running around with this woman, my peace was destroyed by the indulgence of being with her. Her husband found out about us, obviously, eventually. And, he would yell and scream at he would follow us, and he would come into bars or, places that we would go to and scream and yell, and then they'd throw him out. But he wasn't a real man. As a matter of fact, I've heard some terrible news, and terrible news about him. But my world my circle that I always kept very tight. I don't have a lot of friends because I don't want a lot of people in my world. Was being invaded. My peace was invaded. And it was all because of this woman. And it was because of me too. But I should have probably just banged her once and that was it. But the temptation, the short-term pleasures of her body just made me hang around. This is my fault because I'm a man and I'm responsible for everything. But God was giving me these messages. I was ignoring these messages. And the Stoic lines always came to me, and I'm going to give you the Stoic line that was in my head in the entire month of November. It was the Seneca line. It was in my head. And then that night, he literally fucking knocked me out because I went down like a ton of bricks. She said I stood up and then I went down like a ton of bricks. That's never happened to me before or since. So for anybody to believe that, and I was sick, and I think that God had a plan in that too, because I've never been sick before like that. Like the doctor told me that he didn't know how I didn't have organ failure at some point. That's how bad my infection was. That's how sick I was. He didn't know how I was living life the way I was. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, I found out this weekend that she hooked up with another guy and that she's pregnant. Now, she had wanted me to father her baby. And thank God that never happened. It was always in the back of my mind. It was always in the back of my mind that I was not going to embarrass my children. I was not going to disgrace my name, my ancestors, disgrace myself by having a bastard child with a woman who's still married. I live in a small town, everybody would know. And I when I heard this news last night, I came home, I got on my hands and knees, and I thanked God for getting me out because I had a cannonball-sized bullet that I avoided. And it was all because of him. He pushed it right into the side, and he's looking out for me. Do I deserve it? No. No way. But I think because of this podcast that I do and the few people that watch either the shorts or this, I think my message is for all you younger men out there is not to make the mistakes that I made. I think the fool learns from his own mistakes, but the wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Learn from mine. Don't mess with these bitches who are married. Don't mess with them. They'll ruin your foundation. They'll destroy everything that you've ever worked for. My peace was destroyed because of indulgence. I was chasing fleeting pleasure. And there's nothing more destructive than that. Short-term pleasure took away my inner strength. And I tell you that if I had not lost this woman in my life, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I wouldn't be learning how to play guitar, and I still suck, but I'm picking up, I'm making progress, which is what you got to do. I wouldn't be doing some of the new stuff that I'm doing today. I wouldn't have evolved with her in my life because of this temptation, this emptiness. I was empty. Every time I was with her, sexually or hanging out with her, when the night was over, I felt empty. She offered me nothing. She was basically a human toilet to me. But it was the pleasure, getting my jollies off, that kept me going, kept me calling her all the time. Don't do it. Don't fall for it. It's very easy for me to say this, but she tried to trap me, like she trapped this poor slob that she's with now. And this, I don't know the guy, but from what I hear, he's 2/3 of a retard, and he's your typical dude from down here, fat, bald, beard down to his belly, sloppy, just not a high character, high moral guy. And that's what she needs. That's what she wants because she's not a high character, high moral woman. And she's going to have two babies with two different daddies while she's still married. And she's now going to be your prototypical white trash. When you fall into temptation, you disrupt the balance filling your mind. You disturb the balance, your life's balance. And you begin to fill your mind with regret, with anxiety, with guilt. And as I said, I was empty. I was not grounded in my purpose or my principles. And I always Look for more, look for more, look for more. And before I leave you, I just want to give you this little quote from Seneca. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. That is that Stoic quote was in my head for an entire month. God put that there. Whether you believe in God or whoever you believe in. If you don't believe in anything, well, then you're a real psycho. But this quote was in my mind for some reason. And then what happened to me, and my getting sick just made me focus more on me. I focused on me more, and I forgot about her. So that transition of not being with a woman anymore, but focusing on myself, grounding myself, getting serious about my purpose in life, doing new things, doing this. That was all due to my illness at the end of the year, at the end and beginning of the year. And I thank God for it. And I just, I can't tell you enough. I implore you, if you're a guy in his early 20s, early 30s, if you're a guy who's my age, don't fall for the temptation. I know it's hard, but it'll only destroy you. And you'll feel the signs. You'll feel the signs. God will send it to you. Believe me. And the Stoics, if you ever read the Stoics, if you don't want to read the Stoics, just remember this line here. Because it'll save you. It'll save you a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of frustration, and it'll save your time. And there's my 2 cents. All right, gentlemen, or ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. And remember, my friends, Satan is always busy, and he comes in many different forms. Be a man, have a backbone. I got my backbone. God kicked me in the ass and straightened me out. Because masculinity and common sense are worth standing up for. And just remember, if it ends in an ism, it's a mental disorder. We'll see you tomorrow.